My name is Eric Wenrick. I'm making this video in response to the proposed elimination and reconfiguration of the position of supervisor of RAA in Central Unified School District. Although the resolution may have a significant impact on me personally, this resolution is technically about a position and how much the organization values that position. So you'll just hear my voice in this video. In a clear, concise way, I'll present the facts supported by evidence already provided that from the classroom to the boardroom, this position is critical to our understanding of student achievement in our district. The bullet points highlighted on this slide explain the critical role that this position plays in our district by providing student achievement, school climate, and system accountability data that is used by leaders at every level of our organization. Unfortunately, I need to cover how this resolution is a violation of Board Policy 4400. Per Board Policy 4400, the three possible reasons for eliminating an existing position are shown on this slide. Nobody is claiming either of the first two are in play. However, the claim being made on the resolution is that the position is being eliminated due to lack of funds. But even within the same resolution, the contracted days are being increased, not reduced, and the job description remains substantially unchanged. This resolution is self-contradictory on its BP 4400 also requires a review of the job description by the employee and the supervisor. On December 18th, a positive evaluation was received from our retiring supervisor, but there was no discussion of the job description at that time. BP 4400 further requires that any recommendations for changes shall be submitted by the supervisor in writing. However, when I asked for the written documentation, the response was, "There are no written documents responsive to your request." What this sounds like is reclassification is defined by AR 4400. You have a copy of that in the packet. That requires us to get an updated job description that addresses comparison of old to new, as well as a proposed qualification and experience. Which brings us to the stated purpose of this resolution. What's in the memo and the board item description both state the purpose of the board item to align the new position's work here with other exempt classified management employees that have comparable levels of responsibility, skill, and training. Let's take a look at this position. Given the base salary and a 205 contract day, the effective daily rate of pay is shown by the slope of this line. The yellow area to the right defines plus 5% or minus 5%, a range we might think of as comparable. It's important to understand the question of comparability and competitive compensation. So when I asked why my position was excluded from the recently presented study, I was informed that positions not included in the classification study receive competitive compensation and thus were not included in the classified market study. The situation that Human Resources is trying to address with this item is a disparity in the rate of pay that has existed since the position was created 14 years ago. I'll get to that momentarily. The proposed alignment is based on comparable levels of responsibility, skill, and training. Since it is extremely difficult to compare the very different individual duties being performed without a full classification study, I've included the existing education and experiences from the job description of the REA position as it currently exists, along with the job description of the only position that's proposed level for the new year. You'll notice that the existing and revised job descriptions for the RA position attached to this board item include the requirement of a bachelor's degree and a preference for a master's degree, whereas the proposed comparison level mentions college-level courses without requiring a bachelor's degree, and it makes no mention of a master's degree whatsoever. The appropriate remedy to this situation would be to reclassify the position so that it aligns with the positions including a master's degree. This would be at the director level. However, if we expand our consideration to include certificated positions, there is good alignment with the assistant director position, so I've included it here for consideration. You can see that even though the rate of pay is higher, the supervisor of RAE position, there is lower total amount of pay than assistant directors or directors. Under the proposed resolution, this position would effectively donate $1,000 to the district every single day for 20 days. However, if we reclassified to the director level, the district would receive 20 days of additional services at the steeply discounted rate of $350.11 per day. Choosing the assistant director level, the district would receive 10 additional days at the bargain basement price of $196.41 per day. Except for the two supervisors I have had thus far in 2026, I have attempted to have this situation resolved with every supervisor I've had. Until now, my repeated requests have fallen on the deaf ears of prior administrations. When making decisions, it is important to understand the magnitude of those decisions. One former assistant superintendent and CBO, Kelly Porterfield, used to use the term budget dust to describe amounts so insignificant that they really don't impact the overall budget. I've heard others use it too, but I've never thought about graphing it until now. When we look at the biggest possible difference between what I think is truly comparable and what is being proposed, that gap is $28,044.50. That's about $10,000 higher than the anticipated savings suggested by the board. The impact of that $28,000 means an 18% pay cut for the employee, but only a 0.053% or 0.05% reduction in classified salaries, or just 0.001% compared to the general fund. I've graphed that here on a scale of 0 to 100. Do you see the impact on the classified salaries? What if I zoom in to make the scale go from 0 to 20%? Can you see the budget dust now? Look, if I then further zoom into a scale of only 0 to 5%, you can see there's the budget dust, and here's the 1% line. Just for point of reference, it's such a small fraction of the 1%. I'll also point out that in recent years, our district's reimbursement for conducting state assessment activities has been $56,000, or just a hair shy of 2 times the budget dust gap of $28,000. While each director has their area-specific focus, the leader of REA is focused on student academic achievement. Each year, the superintendent is required to designate a CASP coordinator and LPAC coordinator, and those responsibilities for state assessment fall in the bottom third of this annual assessment calendar. The portion above LPAC is mostly dedicated to locally decided assessments. However, many of these assessments are either required by Ed Code or support the completion of local control accountability plan. Among the many responsibilities listed in the job description, the core responsibility that stood out to me is the one that focuses on implementing systems for increasing the effective collection, reporting, analysis, and use of data at all levels of the district, focused on improving student learning. While some of our vendor-provided systems include completion tracking reports, the ones pictured here were developed in-house to track completion of assessments that do not have built-in completion tracking. The LPAC test completion report on the right side indicates 99.13% completion rate for the English language proficiency assessments for California from last year. Reports vary widely from individual student reports for families, classroom level details to help our teachers differentiate instruction, school-by-school summaries for district administration, tracking trends over time, comparing with similar districts, and a couple that board members may be familiar with. I've included some California school dashboard slides on the left that I presented on behalf of Educational Services at a recent board meeting, and annual community survey input results that I presented with Dr. Lopez on behalf of Student Support Services this year. This position requires someone capable of performing advanced statistical analysis. During my time in this position, I've helped to develop local assessments and tested the test through various statistical methods, including sample predictive correlations like the one shown here. I've done longitudinal analysis of student groups over time, constructed profiles of selected populations, and written short guides to increase statistical literacy among our leaders. Over time, it's become increasingly clear to me that our teacher training programs don't provide the opportunity to learn how to use data effectively. Often, teachers learn in the context of vendor-created visualizations that are still hard to understand, so we create guides to assist their understanding. We create goals based on prior results. We discover areas of focus by examining data together. We create truly compatible cross-district comparison tools by extracting the data from research files and recomputing key measures. And we reimagine and provide information graphics in more intuitive ways. There's a lot more to this position as outlined in the revised job description I've provided, but you have a good understanding of the basics by now. I've added the roles listed on this side explicitly to call out those that require the superintendent to make a formal designation on an annual basis. The person in these roles, along with the superintendent, are the California Department of Education's primary point of contact when they need to communicate with the district. Codifying those responsibilities into the job description means the district would create a clear position who's responsible for responding to CDE in these areas. And now we've come to decision time. As I see it, there are 3 possible actions you could take as board members. You could approve the resolution without asking for any supporting documentation from senior administration. You could not approve the resolution and not recommend any further action, leaving the pay disparity in place. Or you could not approve the resolution and direct the appropriate staff to work on a reclassification per AR 4400. Whereas the work being done in this position is essential for our school and district leaders from the classroom all the way to the boardroom, and it touches every student. The work that's done is foundational to our understanding of student academic achievement, the very core of why we do this work, and this work deserves to be done by a director. Therefore, I recommend that the board not approve this resolution and direct the appropriate staff to work on a reclassification of this position in accordance with Administrative Regulation 4400. If you're still undecided at this point, here are a couple of questions you should be asking. Since this is not a reduction in service, how does this action meet the criteria for elimination in Board Policy 4400? The job description seems to be far more complex than a data assessment hub. When did you discuss all the responsibilities with the incumbent employee? And here are some further questions you could be asking. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration.